Well, I was born in Buffalo, as I said. Grew up in North Jersey, just across the river from New York City. Went through high school there, played ball, did all the things kids in the 50s did in the early 60s. Got out of school and said, I'm not going to school anymore, much to my dad's consternation. I was an okay student, but I wasn't a great student, and I just didn't want any more of teachers telling me what to do. Well, I went in on my sister's birthday in '65, and much to her consternation, and right away went right down there. Off the bus, they start yelling at you, and it's a different time. You know, they could yell at you. They couldn't slap you around, and they didn't, but they could get right in your face pretty tough. And they got right in your face. And it was like, oh, what in the world have I done? I thought my dad was a disciplinarian. These guys got me licking the sand here. But like I said, you learn very quick. They're trying to break you down to that, you just have that last little grain of self-respect, and then they build you up. And then they break you down, and they build you up. And then they break you down, and they build you up. Each time a little higher and higher. So by the time, well, you know, it's basic training, and that's what the idea is, basic. And you're going to go to an AIT afterwards and learn your military occupational specialty, for me, which is military police. And by the time you get done with that, if you don't know what you're doing and how to do it, you might as well get out. Though, again, now they'll chapter you out, then they wouldn't. We'll find something for you to do, even if it's counting nuts and bolts.
Peeling potatoes.
I had one day of that. That was more than enough. They asked for volunteers the next day to get your driver's license, military driver's license. And even though everybody said, don't volunteer for, my hand was up so fast. I got that driver's license. They right away check you out on a Jeep, a 3/4 ton and a deuce and a half. And I never had KP or anything else. I was always the super. If you look good and dress well, you're always the supernumerary on guard mount. Supernumerary means you don't have to actually guard, you actually drive the officer of the day around. Yeah, but you can't do that if you don't have a driver's license. Well, boot camp was boot camp. 8 weeks later, you graduate and you're supposed to get 2 weeks off. I got 3 days, and it was down to Fort Gordon, Georgia for military police school, which has since changed. I mean, they went to then, I think they went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, and now it's out at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, when they did a lot of consolidation. But I went to Fort Gordon, graduated at the top 2% of the class, which all of a sudden, hey, I do have some brain in my head. And they kept the top 5% of the class there to be instructors in the military police school for officers and military policemen from other countries. The word police is a misnomer there. We were policemen for our military police, but at the time, we were becoming warrior police also. You didn't just carry a .45. You now had the M16 or an M14 if you happened to have the older weapons. You were having shotguns. You weren't just having a .45 and a truncheon or a hickory club. You weren't just knocking heads. You were actually going out and doing infantry type duty in a supporting role. I mean, they didn't send you right on the front line. So you were transitioning from being a policeman on a post and, hey, blouse your boots, tuck your shirt in, take your hat off, or put your hat on, or whatever it might have been. We were becoming fighters also. And now they're support role, but they're fighters. I mean, it's gone full circle now. Right before Thanksgiving of '65, they meaning the powers that be there, said, okay, that I should say it was right before Thanksgiving, because it was right after the Iron Triangle, when the Cav got into it with the NVA, up with the Iron Triangle, Parrots Peak, and they annihilated each other, basically. So the buildup was now, okay, and it was, everybody's going over there. So they didn't just send, no, you're gonna go, and you're gonna go, and you're gonna go. It was like, you're all going. So we had all these MPs down there, and at the time, our class were these foreign officers and foreign students. And we had a platoon and a half, 45 or so people as instructors. We were just PFCs, but we were the ones that did all the. So I said, it was a block. You're all going, and they woke us up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. CQ, charge of quarters, is out. The CQ runner is out there with a pot and pan, literally, and a wooden spoon. He's banging on the, and we're throwing shoes at him and boots and get out of here. What are you doing? You're all going. Get up. You're all going overseas. You're going in right now. It's 2 o'clock. You thought he was just. This first sergeant the next morning was like, "How come you guys aren't here?" Because the CQ runner, he's lower than we were. We thought he was just lying. Well, we weren't getting leave, and it's like, you guys can't go overseas without leave. And whatever phone calls they make, they got us a week's leave. Went home, mom and dad, hey, girlfriends, going overseas, tears. But it's what you signed up for. You knew it was happening. I mean, because I was an enlistee. I mean, even the draftees knew it was going to happen. We went to Fort Ord, California, and we turned in now it's winter time here, winter issue here, but it's summer issue in Vietnam. You turn in all your winter gear, they give you all your summer gear. Loaded us on a C-141 Starlifter, took off, landed in, we landed in Philippines, I believe. No, we landed in Hawaii, then the Philippines, excuse me. We landed in Hawaii for an hour or two to just fuel up. They wouldn't even let you off the plane. And you sat backwards in those planes in sling seats. And at any rate, landed in Vietnam, and they open the doors and the aroma hits you. Sort of a wood smoke, filth, the river's running right close by. It's just not something you're familiar with. And it's like, what? That's the first thing that hits you. And the next thing is shrapnel, because here comes the mortars. And, and they're hustling you off, and, and everybody's trying to duck down there, and they know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. They got us over what we call the Repel Depot, replacement unit. And everybody's under bunks, laying down under bunks with mattresses on us, because that was the only protection we had at the time. The next morning, when I say a mortar attack, it wasn't an all-out, 3 or 4 or 5 rounds maybe. And I don't even know where they fell. I mean, they weren't next to us, but still, you don't know. At any rate, the next morning they start doing the processing, and you get paperwork, and they hand me paperwork that I'm going to the 1st Infantry Division. I said, wait a minute. All of what? We're all MPs. You're going to 1st Infantry Division. I'm not an infantryman, even though that's what basic is. No, it's where you're going. And they handed me a bayonet for an M14. And said, you've got guard, you and whatever this guy have guard duty tonight. You're going to be at the main gate. This was at Tan Son Nhut Airport. With a bayonet? What are we going to have, hand-to-hand? Well, if it comes to it, and they're not pulling your leg. I mean, nobody was going to have an all-out frontal attack at the main gate of Tan Son Nhut. They'd never get there. But that was my weapon for the first night. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is worse than, this isn't like anything. I'm laughing now because it's sort of a funny incident. Nothing did happen, but it was terrifying then. At any rate, next day, 2 days later, day after that, I think it was, they sent us to a place called Zion, which was the 1st Division headquarters, main base, and the division was there. But they have, the division is massive, you know, they have a unit here, and a unit here, and a unit here, and a unit here, and other bases around in what they called I-Corps, or 2-Corps, or 3-Corps, and I was assigned to the military police part of it, you know, because that's what my MOS was, my job. Great, and we did military police things for the first few days, basically riding around on post patrol, and it was literally, this is a war zone. People are getting shot at and killed, and we're shooting back and killing, and we're trying to tell guys to polish their boots and, you know, blouse your boots, and hey, you know, that jungle shirt should be this way, or, you know, you couldn't roll your sleeves up at the time. Your sleeves had to be down, you know, and there was no such thing as OD green patches and stuff. Everything was colored, and you know, they had to cover it with this green tape, and they weren't doing it. And, hey, you can't. Come on, this is a war. So we went up to Fouloy, and they start running convoys. You're doing the things that military police normally do. We ran convoys. Of course, there was some post patrol, but it was mainly to make sure that everybody had a weapon, had their. Normally, you don't carry a weapon on a military base, except for the military police. But this was a war zone, you know. Let them carry their weapons. You never know. You never know. We pulled the gates. We had a nighttime bunker that we handled, and Fouloy at the time was not a big place, and they had never. If they'd seen the French when the French were there, they'd forgotten them, because they must have thought we were going to eat their kids or something, because nobody would come around. I mean, we had no interaction with. Other than fighting with the people that lived around. But within a month, that downtown, not a town like this, it was tin shacks and wood sort of cobbled together, and bars, if you want to call them that, and whorehouses, cat houses, all over the place. Now, next thing you know, we're accompanying the medics downtown to make sure all the girls and all the cat houses got shots, and this was once a week. You know, wait a minute, you guys are actually, and you know, I'm a 20-year-old going on 21, and I'm not thinking this like this. I'm thinking like, they could stick you with a knife just as easy as, no, you don't do this yet. We're going around giving them shots and making sure, not we're giving them shots, but protecting the medics so that they can give them shots. And again, then there was operations that the division would go on an operation like Birmingham or Junction City or whatever, where they would try and engage the enemy. You know, the enemy's going to do this, we're going to do this, they're going to do this, we're going to go this way, they're going to go that way. Then, okay, maybe if we feint over here, we can catch them over there. And it was all, you know, stuff that the higher ups thought, and we, again, by this time I'm Spec 4, that you just sort of followed your orders. But you're the one, along with everybody else, that's catching this. And we're pulling traffic control points to direct a convoy to a certain area. And you're out in the middle of a little out-of-the-way village. And you don't know what's in the woods around you, the jungle around you, you know, the buildings, what few buildings there are around you, and, you know, and you're trying to set up protection for the guy out there, and he's catching fire, and he's trying to point tanks this way, and Jeeps go that way, and oh, wait a minute, these are Aussies, they've got to go this way. Oh, the rocks, they go over there. Rocks mean the Republic of Korea, because those guys are bad. They're bad. You know, from there, you know, again, it was military police things, but it was becoming the transition for the military police was going from just being around a post and making sure that soldiers looked good and were sharp and didn't beat each other up, And we're now getting out and full complement of weapons, I mean, besides all the other things that happened. I remember one time we were pulling at Fuloy, we were pulling the south gate, and we had a bunker there, sandbags and, you know, and concertina wire and all this baloney and stuff there. And we didn't, no trucks, no vehicles were allowed into South Gate. It was a personnel gate. People walked in and out. If these these guys wanted to go to town and get drunk or, you know, be with a woman for a while, you know, that's the gate they came in and out. North Gate was the only vehicular gate that was open. Those were the only two gates along the same road about a mile apart. And we're at the South Gate, and there's a little putt-putt Lambretta, little three-wheeled telephone booth on three wheels down a road, and it stops, and we didn't want vehicles stopping. You know, there were no IED type things at the time, though they did dig holes in the road and bury 250, 500-pound bombs in them with a detonator, a pressure detonator, and your vehicle right over it and it'd blow it sky high. Basically an IED, but not quite the same thing. It wasn't remotely controlled. At any rate, this Lambretta stops, and it's like, no, and we throw some rounds across its front. We're not trying to shoot anybody because they were civilians, but you don't stop there. And the little old man gets out, and he's yelling and screaming. And we look at the back, and there's a woman squatted down, and it's like, what the heck is she doing? She's digging a hole in the ground. No, she wasn't. She was having a baby. So it's like, we're American boys, men. You can't let a woman have a baby in a dirt road. So you go running out there, and, you know, we've got our shirts off, and we're holding her and helping. She doesn't want any help. She just squatted down, and she's telling us, Dee Mao, get out of here. You know, go away, go. We didn't. We helped her. She hadn't, like, squishing a sausage out. She had that baby, and we, you know, and we cut the umbilical cord and tied it off, and she picked the baby up, got back in that Lambretta, and drove away. You know, there's all sorts of things that would happen. There was a little bar across the street, restaurant, from the gate, and one day this little, he ended up being a waif. He had no family. His mother and father had been killed. His family had disappeared. And he's 8 years old, and he's hanging around by our bunker. We're telling him to get out of here, get out of here. And we could hardly speak any Vietnamese, a few phrases. He learned to speak English from hanging around by our gate. At any rate, he would run over to that bar and get us, you know, sodas, or you know, they had some sort of shrimp dish or something, and this egg thing that, I don't know, things they would bring us. We weren't supposed to have any foreigners or aliens or whatever, just Americans in this gate. He ended up living there. This was his house because we had a roof on it, and not that we protected him, but he ran all sorts of errands for us and silly little things. And that kid ended up telling, it wasn't me, but told one of our MPs that was down there about some incident that was going to happen later that night around the North Gate. So, of course, you get this, and you know, it's a little kid telling you, how's he know anything? But you report it, you know. Sure enough, you know, we take some precautions, and we caught some infiltrators trying to come in through into the concertina wire. We had a no man's land of about 300 yards around the place, full of concertina wire, and all the vegetation down. They came in a helicopter, and just with the Agent Orange, and just the whole area, you know, and then you had no vegetation, so you could see no man's land. Fill it up with concertina wire, you know, 3, 2, 1, and it's difficult to get through. But they'd come in, and they'd lay down on the ground, and they'd be cutting like this. And we had claymores out there, but, you know, if you didn't, the claymores we had were operated with a plunger. It wasn't one that was remotely operated. Well, it was remote because we were over here, but it was still with a plunger. You had to see them, and you'd see them up there. You'd see a hand turn up, and we had starlight scopes, And you'd see the hand come up and it would turn the claymore around so that if you pushed the plunger, you were shooting yourself. At any rate, this little kid became, hey, this guy's got, he's got info. And so we made sure that he stayed well. I remember a time we were on a, I don't remember which operation it was, but we were in the Michelin plantation. And you talk about trees. Miles and miles and miles and more miles of rubber trees, and that's all you see. And the light, I mean, it comes through, it filters through, but it filters through green. By the time it gets down to you, I mean, everything's green. And there's people that live in little huts in this forest that go around making sure the trees are doing what they're supposed to do when they cut them and they get the latex out. And they just live in these little huts in the forest like this, and that's their life. And we were setting up in there, 5 MPs, and we were going to direct traffic coming through on it, traffic. This, again, it's the middle of nowhere on this operation, and we're going to have a column come through, and we're going to, on this little path, and we're going to direct them to a certain area over here where they're going to set up, and it's going to be an evac point for choppers, for medevac choppers. Okay, so that means there's going to be some Army aviation units coming in with choppers. Well, we're a diversion, though we don't know that. You know, you're supposed to get out there at 0200 or something, and you don't even know where you're going, first of all. Second of all, you can't see because you can't use running lights. You got to use blackout lights, which are little red things that don't light up anything. You end up getting to where we're supposed to be. We set up, and you got your chief there. We got an M60 on it, and we all have weapons, and no column comes through. Now, you're maintaining radio silence, too. There's no, hey, yeah, guys, hey, where are you? What's going on? You know, how come you didn't get here? You know, again, waiting, and nothing's, you know, it's well past the time the column's supposed to have come through. And we're thinking, what happened to that column? Did they get blasted? Did they get hit? Is there a change of plans? You know, and you know, okay, they're going to come let us know in a short while. All day, all night, the next day. Again, no, you were maintaining radio silence, and we had brought enough sea rations that we always brought sea rations. We'd wrap them in socks. They were cans. And you put them in your socks, and you get 2 meals in each sock, and you tie them to your epaulets. And that it's cumbersome, but you could at least carry, you know, 8 meals with you. So that's what we're eating. And the middle of the next day, we see the little guy coming down doing this tree thing. Obviously, nothing's happening. They're not sending a column through here. This guy wouldn't even be around. He'd know long before we knew where the column was. He did what he didn't. He may have known we were there, but he didn't make any indication. He went on his way. Now, a little while, well, 3-4 hours later, here's a squad. Now, we didn't have quite a squad. We were 5 people. Squad is, I believe it's 8 now. A squad, you know, 10 or 12 people of VC are coming through. You know, so, we're well, I can't say we're well hidden, but we're well entrenched. Like, well, do we engage? Is this column going to come through? Are they going to are they planning to do something to the column, which is now 2 days late? Well, eventually, before we're a bunch of people, well, Spec 4s, a couple of PFCs and Spec 4s. We don't even have a 3-striper with us. Like, we have no authority to, but what's going on? Well, they see us, and next thing you know, they're shooting at us, so we're shooting back, blah, 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 blah. And again, they dispersed. I don't know where they went. They just filter away. And the next day, now it's the third day. A Jeep is coming down with a 3/4 behind it, 3/4 ton behind it, one of the military police ones, We're picking up the stragglers. How come you guys are still out here? Another column, we were going from Fuloy to Ben Cat, which is where one of our other MP units was. Now, this wasn't a column of just military police. This was a 1st Division column because they were going to kick off an operation up to Ban Me To from there. And they were going to support, maybe that might have been the 173rd. Okay, so we're escorting the column. Well, we weren't leading it. A couple of tanks are leading it. And then there's an APC or two, column of deuce and a halves and 5 tons and pulling the howitzers and ammunition and food and blah, 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 blah. A couple of MPs along the sides here and there, and a tank or two at the back end with some more MPs. I don't really remember the name of the river, but there was a river we have to cross. And bridges over there were just thoughts. Well, let's put a piece of wood here and another piece of wood here, and we'll lay something on top and maybe we can get across. Well, okay, the tank's got the bridge going like this. At any rate, they get across and the bridge blows. So they were sappers there from the VC, and however they did it, they set so the bridge is in the water, in the river. A third of the column was on one side, maybe 2/3 of the column was on one side, we're back on this side. And it's too far to turn around and go back. It's now, 1800. This column's, they might as well continue on to their destination. They're not going to be able to do us much good. Besides, we have 2 tanks. Okay, great. We've got the food truck, the main, mess truck. And this is probably a 70 or 80 vehicle column. So I'd never had a cup of coffee in my life before that, and the food that we had been eating was mostly sea rations. You didn't even heat them up, you just ate them out of the can. So we got the mess truck, and it's like, okay, we set up our little perimeter, we're gonna, the mess truck the guys come around and they've got it's not a Lister bag. A Lister bag is what you carried water in, but it's this big, it's like a 55-gallon drum, but not quite that size. It's on the back of the 3/4 ton, and they've got it all wrapped down, and it's full of coffee. I mean, it's steaming. It's, it's so hot. I think they boil the stuff away. And they come around, everybody, these are like 200. Everybody, coffee. No, I don't want any coffee. Coffee. I don't want any coffee. Coffee, everybody, get your canteen cups. Oh, okay, canteen cup holds, like a quart. And they pour it in there. I don't know from nothing. Mistake. Serious mistake. Send me to the VC. I need a bathroom. I need a bathroom. So came around in the morning. They had, for whatever reason, they were told you can't have any more heat, fire to cook breakfast. Breakfast wasn't going to be much, but you can't even do any of the eggs or bacon or whatever it was they were going to have. So you got to serve it to them cold. And they bring this god-awful mess up. So you open up the hood of the Jeep, and the exhaust manifold was on the top. And it came off like this, but it was flat on the top. And we're putting all these cans of food, I use that term very loosely, up on the manifold. That's how we learned how to heat up our food. And then that Jeep took some fire. It was while it was there, while we were camping around, shall we say, goofing around. We started receiving some small arms fire, and when it was all done, and again, it wasn't one of these sustained, 2-hour things. It was 3 minutes. But that Jeep looked like Swiss cheese. I was like, wow, geez, God, look at this. If we were sitting in that thing, we're dead. Let's armor our Jeep. No, there was no armored Jeeps. There was none. We get back to Fuloy. Now, this Jeep had to be towed. It was destroyed. We get back to Fuloy. We're gonna armor our Jeeps. How do we armor our Jeeps? Well, we got to get armor. Where do you get armor? We have an attack helicopter company there, and they had this sort of mesh stuff that would go under the pilot and co-pilot seats, and sometimes in the floor of the passenger bay, it's like an aluminum webbing mesh kind of thing. And for small arms fire and maybe some shrapnel. I mean, you shoot at it with a rocket, it was going down anyway. Anyway, let's use that stuff. Well, that wasn't, you couldn't manipulate it right. Well, we have PSP, perforated steel planking. Well, that's got holes in it already. That's not going to be any good. Well, so we ended up over at an engineer unit there. We got to the engineer. Every company, every platoon, maybe even every squad has a procurer, somebody who is able to strike deals, if you will. Even if it's 5-finger discount, he's able to get it. And okay, you can do this stuff. Mostly it was a trade. I'll give you this, you give me this. Now, the only thing the MPs had to give was sort of like, we won't bother you. Well, that's not going to work because we have to bother you. That's what our job is. At any rate, somehow or other from this engineering unit, he got all these big, half-inch steel plate. Half-inch steel is, in these 2-foot by 6-foot sheets, those are heavy. He gets them all over there. We don't know what to do. You can't just lay them. So we take it back over there, and these guys they had all this cutting equipment and, welders and stuff. They cut this stuff. It was almost like a custom-made Jeep. Jeeps weren't fast to begin with. Maybe it could go 45, 50 top end, maybe a little more, but that wasn't not much more than that. By the time they were done with this Jeep, it couldn't go 10. The thing was so heavy. We would shoot at it to make sure it did what it, boom, 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 a couple of times. Oh yeah, that works great. But you couldn't get it. Jeep couldn't get out of its own way. One of the times the unit was coming in, and they brought indigenous workers into the base, and they would polish your shoes. Not that any shoes were really polished, but polish your boots. The MPs wore steel pots when we were out in the field, but when we were around base, we wore just the helmet liner, and we had them painted up real nice dark blue, and then we had a nice white stripe around, and with a red, the First Division symbol on each side, and then MP in the front, and then we took clear shoe polish and polished them up. So we wore white lanyards, white gloves, white shoelaces on base. So we looked the part. Well, this unit's coming in. They want to bring some of these indigenous workers in to do all this stuff, the KP, the barbers, and things like this. And when they're bringing the unit, the people out at night, they come back in, 20, 30 minutes later from their pickup point, and they've got a pile of people underneath the tarpaulins. It's like, you're supposed to be taking them home, not bringing them back. And you just giggling. It's a bunch of women. Oh, wait a minute. Well, no. You can't do this. Oh, please. There's no please involved. You cannot do this. What do you want? There's nothing you can get us. There's nothing you can do to allow this. You've got to be able to do. We had a lieutenant that was in charge of the military police at Fouloy, and their lieutenant from, I think it was a transportation company, got together, and I was carrying a shotgun and a 45, and we had an M60 on several of our Jeeps. Those were my two weapons, my two personal weapons. We had rifles, but I didn't have one. I preferred the shotgun. They bargained that they would get us, again, this is 1966. It wouldn't happen today. But in 1966, he said, we want M16s. Okay, how many do you want? Well, we've got 36 men here, 36, we've got a platoon of people. I want 36 of them. Okay. And you're gonna let us bring the ladies on? One night, just one night. And there better not be anybody beating anybody up or, We don't want to hear any bad stories about this. Okay. A couple of days later, truck comes up. It's in the 36. It's got 72 M16 rifles on it, into hard boxes with Cosmoline all over them. It's like, where the hell did you get these? From the docks down in Saigon. We don't want stolen weapons. Oh, they're not stolen. Here's the paperwork. They brought up their requisitioned weapons, which they just gave to us. Well, what about your guys? Well, they've already got theirs. Okay, fine. So we all have, now we have not one M16, we've got two. Oh, I've got one on this shoulder, one on this shoulder. I can shoot, like John Wayne here, boom, 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 boom. But again, they were requisitioned for that unit. They weren't stolen. It wasn't black market stuff. But it's like, how do you just get away with that? When I got my shotgun, we were the MPs at Fouloy ate, if you want to call it eating, at the Division Artillery Mess Hall. Headquarters and Headquarters Division Artillery Battery was right there. And our hooch was right next to their hooch. And they had 6 105s. And they were going at it. And the next night that we were supposed to go out on a draw fire patrol, we'd send 8 or 10 people out and hope we could engage the enemy, make ourselves well known out there, draw fire so we'd know where they were, and then bring in more. We weren't trying to ambush them. We were trying to get them to engage us, and we'd know where they were, and then we could bring fire onto them there. Okay. This is where I decided I wanted to carry a shotgun, because an M16 bullet is very small. It's like a 22, a little bit more powerful, but still like a 22. And well, grass wouldn't deflect it, but a tree branch or something would deflect the bullet. Shotgun just might as well, if you shot at the wall falls down. Okay, I want a shotgun. So I went to Division Artillery Supply, and we don't have our own supply there. I need a shotgun. Okay, blah, 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 blah. They hands me a brand new 12 gauge and a bandolier and ammunition. Okay, I'm well set. I go to turn the weapon in, 8 months, 9 months later when I'm leaving country. I go to turn it in, different supply sergeant there. What's that? I'm turning it in. I said, it was issued to me. Oh, okay. And he goes through and he said, nope, it wasn't issued to you. In fact, it wasn't issued to anybody. Well, this is where he got it from, Sergeant, whatever the guy's name was. He says, yeah, he's long gone. I said, okay, but still, it's where I got it. He said, look, I don't have a record of it here. Is it ever being here? It wasn't issued from here. As far as I'm concerned, it's your weapon. Again, this doesn't happen in 2019, but what am I supposed to do with this thing? You can't take it home. There were guys that would try and stuff it down their duffel bags or something, but you can't take it home. So it's like, okay, I'll turn it into the MP supply. Went back at Zion. Not ours. So I found one of my good buddies who was still going to stay there. I said, you want a shotgun? What am I going to do with a shotgun? I don't know. Shoot it. Here. Oh, yeah, okay. Where'd you get it? It's the one I've been carrying. Don't you turn it in? Nobody wants it. It's yours. I came back. I went to Fort Campbell. Hated Fort. I'm in the Army yet. Can't say hated Campbell. Campbell itself was nice. The 6th Infantry Division was staging there to go over Vietnam, to replace a unit over there, and it was one bar fight after another. It was just a madhouse. I was like, I just came out of a war zone where we were shooting people. I don't want to, be fighting with American soldiers. So it's like, they asked for volunteers to the MP detachment in Nashville, Tennessee. Again, you raise my hand. And the sergeant's like, again, I was supernumerary, and he's like, you don't want to do that. That sucks. That's the worst duty in the world. Look, Lieutenant, I don't want to be down here. Up here. I got to get out of here. Okay, pack your bags. Went down to that night. Went down to Nashville. They lived in a house. It was an E6 in charge. I was an E5 now. I got an E6 in charge. There's no officers, not even a sergeant first class, just the hard stripe E6. Okay, yeah. And basically his attitude was, don't put anything on my desk. Do what you got to do, but don't cause problems. Okay, we lived in a house out by what they were building Percy Priest Lake down there. We lived out there, all of us were there. We worked 5 days on, 5 days off. 5 12-hour days, and then 5 days off. Anything more than 3 days off in the military is leave. We had leave papers there that we would give, temporary leave papers, that you would give to soldiers that were delayed getting out of the airport, let's say, or something. Their leave papers were going to expire. They weren't doing anything wrong, we just extend their leave, basically. Type them up, the E6 would sign them, and you're on leave. It wasn't even charged. You can't do this. You just can't do this. I'm there 3 days. I don't know anything about the city. We're riding around making sure guys in the airport are looking sharp, or what we called strack. These guys looked good, weren't causing trouble. Anybody in transit through the area was doing and acting with military decorum, blah, blah. Now we're doing military police stuff. And, if you caught an AWOL or something, more power to you, you send them back. I'm there 3 days. We get a call up on a place called Love Circle, that there's a sick civilian. Now, we worked through the civilian police radio network. If they got a call about a military personnel, they would call us. They didn't want to handle it. So we get a call that there's a sick military personnel up on Love Circle. Okay, we get up there, and I find this nice little house, and a couple there, and a woman kneeling on the floor. This guy laying on the floor with his head in her lap, and he's, you're moaning and groaning. And he had the short hair and the black shoes, and where are you from? Little Rock Air Force Base. Oh, I'm so sick. Oh, okay. Now, Seward Air Force Base is 20 miles away. We'll take you down there. Okay, yeah. We don't know from nothing. He doesn't look like he's going to die any minute, but he sounds like he's in agony. Come on, let's go. Get him in the car. We fly down there. And he gets in the car, and his attitude all of a sudden changes from ill to he's telling jokes and goofing around with us, and maybe he got better real quick. At any rate, we get him down there, take him to the infirmary, and they do what they're going to do, and we're hanging around waiting. Doctor comes back out. What's the matter with him? Nothing's the matter with him. He's faking it for the girl. Faking it for the girl. What are you talking about? He wanted his girlfriend to think that, besides, we think he's AWOL. Okay, well, we can find that out. We make a couple of phone calls, radio calls, and the sergeant back at the office calls Little Rock. Yeah, he's not just AWOL, he's a deserter. He's gone 70 some odd days. Oh, this is a nice feather in your cap to catch somebody. He's not going back to the girlfriend. He's going right to the civilian jail for overnight. We're going to put on a plane the next day out of Fort Campbell to Little Rock, which we do. Now I need all this information about this lady I saw whose head he got in her lap. And I thought to myself, that's a good-looking lady. But I'm doing my duty. I'm not going to do anything. I go over there and I get her name and address, and a couple of days later call her up and ask for a date, and I get this, you're that guy that arrested my boyfriend. Yeah. What makes you think I'd want to go out with you? Is it because I'm from New Jersey and I've got a Corvette? We went out on a date or two, and 6 weeks later we were married.
Still to this day?
And still married. 2 boys, both military, both retired military, 4 grandkids. Here I am. I think any one of us could probably tell you day by day, I never felt so alive and so close to death. You're doing something that I felt was important, and you were alive. You had to be alive. You had to be totally aware, conscious of everything, every moment. And yet you were, not just me, anybody over there was or even still, was that close, that moment. And that's why I became a policeman. I wanted to have that, though it's not the same thing. You're not, being a policeman is, 99% of the time you're going, oh my God, when's this shift going to end? Punctuated by a couple of moments of terror. And it's always dealing with somebody at their worst moments, even if it's just a motor vehicle accident or they have a flat tire on the street, it's just something bad for them. Much less if it's heaven forbid, a shooting or I don't know, a sick baby or something. Again, you handle them, you do them, you get through them, but at the end of it, it's like, I hope I did some good there, because it sure looks like everything is miserable. But be that as it may, here we are, I don't do that anymore.
Now you're a sculptor.
I sit on my mountain and play with pens and make jewelry and dig in the garden.